stop when I tell it.
But not recording straight.
Yeah, but I'm actually that's recording. I was just. I want to get out.
No, like, you can get out.
So we're doing like a.
And then somebody will see you.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, you tell
And then
them.
we'll just grab that.
But it'll be that picture. That should be-
Oh.
Okay, yeah, and it'll be, it's like cruising, the recording is happening. I know what you're saying, you're wanting to just have it
Like
like
just
just.
because that's a really nice lens on it.
Yes. Okay, somebody also. Like. And Pearl. Like Pearl, like if you would mind, like. if you
Switch
took a
in.
Photo also of sort of like the group.
Yeah.
That would be great. Like just kind of like maybe, David, did you just mention that looks good from where you are?
Yeah,
It's really interesting how the angle changes so much, because if you look at us from the front, we look like some sort of panel discussion maybe, and then from the back, we look like
People waiting on the
People
subway.
waiting.
Like, we look like a group therapy group.
Yeah, hospital.
That's waiting for someone, waiting for our. meds.
Yes, that must have taken a lot of courage, James, to share that. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Ogden. Yay. And whoever Maria is, her audio is.
Maria's
It's
one of our plan D
It
artists.
seems like everybody from Germany is having.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, hello, Martin.
No, what happened next day?
Yeah,
Yeah, and Peter also took forever.
yeah.
And there will another be Heike will also be joining, but
Peter's over there.
Yeah.
it also took a while.
I like that Peter's image and him are exactly the same angle. Behind them.
Coincidence? I think.
Yeah, we met him, that's, everything is planned.
Everything
I
is
know, I like it,
totally
yeah.
planned.
What does plan D mean?
I also like Bogdan's balloon.
That's the story to it.
Oh, okay.
My kids' room.
Oh,
It's a long story. We could do a whole podcast just about.
Alright, so it is exactly 12 noon right now, so
2 more minutes.
should we wait for a couple more minutes?
Okay. No, I didn't, yeah. Take some water. Yes, some water too.
No, I have mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people are being let in. Yeah, on an ongoing basis.
Heike, Maria's connected now.
No.
Heike
It does
is
take-
trying to be connected. Well,
Maybe 6 far away.
What time is it?
6.
Yeah.
In the jungle.
No, what
I
time
don't
is
know.
it?
Noon right now.
Yeah, okay. So we're just.
So we're just gonna wait for a couple more minutes.
So people.
How long is this?
Hello, Maria.
Hello.
Hi, Maria.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello, Maria.
I'm the. Ah, hallo Peter. Genau.
So once.
Oh, okay.
Aaron's on? Well, family's there. My sister, I think, maybe. I don't know.
All the plan D artists are gonna think us Canadians are so quiet.
That's right.
That's not true.
I know there's nothing like.
All right, so for those that are here, we're just gonna wait for a couple more minutes to make sure everybody from Plan D who is not physically here in person is able to get onto Zoom, so we're just gonna wait.
So I'm gonna share the screen
Minutes.
then. So those slides again for people that haven't
Yeah,
seen.
sure.
Can you be the voice?
Yeah, so basically, as I said, we'll do formal introduction in a few minutes, but David, one of the Red Hat members, we're just gonna share some slides about the exchange. And that also show some of the work that the Plan D artists have installed at the Red Hat Gallery in their current exhibition node. So this is a slideshow while we're waiting for the last few people to access Zoom.
Please. There we go. I don't know if anybody had wrestled with that idea of node, but that's sort of the simplest distillation of it, coming together and going away. Graphics done by our friend here who's not at Goethe Institute. Thank you very much. And there's all the Plan D artists.
Yeah.
All of you there.
We never managed to get everybody together, so that
No, there,
One is missing.
one is missing. Yeah, our Japanese content.
There's the Red Hat artists. Talk about having a hard time getting us all together. Chile did a fabulous job piecing this together last night.
Great.
Yes.
There's a bunch of happy people.
Yeah, this is us on just last Sunday on the rooftop garden at 401 Richmond, which is where Red Hat Gallery is located. And that was after the Red Hatters had finished the collaborative piece, and it was just before the Plan D artists started their installation of their work.
And thank you for the cups, Julian, because otherwise it would have been just another group photo. Very special.
The green cup.
That's
The Lincoln,
Club,
you know,
Cup Club.
Yeah.
There's some stuff we wrote up that appears at the gallery about node. And here's some shots collected from the installation yesterday of the work in the gallery.
These are Sonia's photographs,
Yeah,
just with the phone.
yeah, that's just.
And for those that are not in attendance at the gallery, allow me to say, folks, it is a terrific, it is a tremendous installation, a fabulous show. If you can get down to see it, please do. Eric. Column.
This was the collaborative piece, which was an aspect of the exchange where each collective sent instructions to the other collective. And so we, as the Red Hatters, took the instructions that the Plan D artists had sent us. And it was approximately 1 to 2 sentences each. And we created that artistic element, that visual element, and then we came together on Sunday as a collective, and we incorporated all of our elements together. So this will be happening, this will be the sort of reciprocal version of this will be happening in Plan D, and you guys will be responding to the Red Hat artist prompts for that.
are very clear and obviously understood prompts. There'd be no room for ambiguity.
I like it when you, yesterday when you were speaking, I think you said suggestions, you call them suggestions.
Yeah, yeah.
And we always call them instructions.
Definitely. Definitely suggestion. And the end.
So Canadian,
Yeah.
maybe do this, or not.
If you don't mind.
All right, I think we are good to get started. Okay, so, welcome to everybody that is here in person. Welcome to everybody that is here online, through the power of Zoom. First of all, I want to thank the Goethe Institute for, hosting and providing this opportunity for us with the technology and the location. To Husna, who is with us today, and to Jutta, who is in Germany right now. So thank you very much, really appreciate that. Yeah. So I'm Jillian. I am a redhead artist and I am acting in the role of moderator today. So I'll be sort of guiding you through and really just keeping an eye on the clock. So what I'd like to do, first off, is to just have everybody on the panel introduce themselves. So what we decided is that since we have 4 Plan D members who are visiting Toronto during the installation and run of their exhibition, we would have the four Plan D artists on this panel, and then we would also have 4 redhead artists. But there's also Plan D artists present on Zoom, and there are redhead artists present on Zoom. But what I'd like is for the the artists that are physically here on the panel, just to introduce yourselves. So maybe we'll start over here.
My name is Christian. I'm from Plan D and a member in this collective for 13 years now.
I'm Tazeen Qayyum, and I am a member of the Redhead Gallery for the past nearly just over a year now, and I am a multidisciplinary artist.
My name is Sonja Tintenot. I'm a member of Plan D since I think 2001, and I'm not a founder, but nearly just after founding it, I met Peter in the art gallery Baden-Baden and Jörg, and so I found this group when I went out of the city. I found it outside, and then I met people in Düsseldorf, and we first had a very small gallery, and now we have a bigger one.
So in terms of all the Plan D artists, are you the longest duration artist here?
Could be.
Okay, yeah.
From the ones here.
From the ones here. Okay.
Peter's
Founder.
longer.
Gotcha.
I'm Jim Saller. I'm one of the newest members of Redhead Gallery. I just joined this year, and I have my first exhibition with the gallery next June.
I'm Andrea Iser. I have been 15 years in the gallery. Yeah.
And as I've already said, I'm Jillian Isles. I've been a member of Redhead since I believe it was 2011. Yes.
My name is Katrin Lade, German, and I'm a member since 2018, so almost 5 years, about 5 years.
And then we also have 2 redhead artists who were unable to physically be here in person, but they are also participating as sort of panel speakers today. So Tanya, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here in this hybrid format. I've been a Redhead member since the summer of 2012, so 11 years now. And I will pass it on to Sohila.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sohila Eswani. I've been a member of the Redhead for a number of times. I've sort of took a gap a few years when I did my grad program in 2008 and then came back again. So I've been around for a while with the Red Hat Gallery.
And so that is the 8 artists that are going to be sort of doing the majority of the talking today. However, at the end of our hour, we will have a chance to answer questions. So if you do have any questions that come up while we're having our discussion, you can enter them into the chat on Zoom. For anybody that's physically here, you can wait and we will answer questions near the end. We're sort of setting aside about 10 to 15 minutes for that. And also the other Plan D artists and the other Red Hat artists who aren't part of the official panel, we definitely want to give you guys a chance to say something. So that'll also be the sort of the final portion of this discussion is going to involve anybody that has anything they want to say and add. Okay. Okay, so I think what I'd like to do is to just really quickly with Andrea, just very briefly sort of talk about how this exchange came about. Do you want to start that off, Andrea?
Okay. In 2019, I visited Toronto with a friend, and I came to Toronto just only because I knew Leonie Popov, she's coming soon, I hope. And she said, well, you know, I know this Ginny, and she's really good. She's at this collective. They have a collective. We have to go and meet them. I said, okay. So we went, I think, to an opening or so, and I don't know.
Yeah, and then you came to my studio. I remember that Linda, and you came to the studio. Yeah.
So we talked and we wrote after a while, and we agreed on this exchange, and well, Lindy kicked it off. So that's how it happened.
Yeah, exactly. Which was fantastic. A mutual friend of ours connected the two collectives and said, I think you both have a lot in common in terms of how you're operating as artists, and so that was fantastic. And then COVID hit, and everything got postponed. And so it's fantastic that we've actually been able to persevere with this project and be able to actually bring it to fruition, which has been amazing. So yeah, it's really great. So what I'd also like to do, the theme of today's conversation is mostly focused on the idea of what is a collective, what is the opportunity of a collective, and also the need, necessity, and sort of opportunities and benefits of having exchanges and having that sort of cross-cultural dialogue. So to start things off, I think it's important to kind of define or what Plan D is in your own words, and similarly to explain what Red Hat is, because although we're kind of both collectives, I think there might be sort of some differences. So does one of the Plan D artists want to just give a brief description of sort of what Plan D kind of is as an entity?
Okay, shall I start? Well, you can join me.
Yeah.
If I forget something, Plan D is a collective of actually 12 members. One is living permanently in Japan, and all the other ones are situated in Düsseldorf. And our main focus is to curate shows with people from abroad or from other towns, and connect them with people, with artists from Düsseldorf. So we usually don't have one-person shows, but always have shows with 2 or more people.
Our collective 24 years ago started like this, that young artists coming directly from university wanted to show each other's work and to discuss about it. So it starts in a small apartment, in the kitchen, they sitting there, and then they decide, oh, it would be nice to have a little small shop, to a little gallery to show our work. So the first 2 or 3 years, they were about, I think, 12 members. Peter has to correct me, and 12 months. So we said every month someone could show his work. The artists could show their work. And after, I think, 2 years, we thought maybe it's a little bit boring showing our works every year. So it would be much more interesting to see your own works maybe somewhere else in other galleries. And even it's much more interesting to have the contact and the dialogue. And the dialogue is a very important thing for us. So next step was that we asked another friend artist to exhibit together with us. So that was the first thing we do. And after that, we thought, oh, maybe we had so many contacts and we went to different places. So we decided it would be much more interesting to have our own concepts maybe and ask people to exhibit about a special theme. And it's very important to have this contact. And even sometimes we make this contact and people are doing something special extra without us. But that's good because our dream is to have this big net and to know people in the world and to see what are they doing. And maybe they thinking nearly the same, even it's different culture, but they seem the same. And this is so nice having this, and it gives a lot of input for ourselves to make art. And that's the interesting thing is the dialogue.
And nevertheless, there's also, of course, for example, there's if we have a new member, they have a solo show first, also with somebody else. I mean, so we have enough opportunities also to show in group shows.
Yes,
Sure.
and for years we are exhibiting ourselves. For example, in August, I will have a show with one artist. I did a show 17 years ago. Now we are exhibiting again,
Right.
and yeah, that's very nice, I think.
And are you operating and running the gallery space as well? Like, are you like you're as the collective of artists,
Yeah.
you're managing and running that physical gallery space as well, right? Yeah. Which is the sort of the similarity with Redhead, that we're like, we're a collective of artists, so we identify as a collective, but we sort of technically run what would be called in Canada cooperative gallery space, which is sort of an artist funded exhibition space for and yeah, Redhead's been around since 1990, so we're one of the sort of longest running physical artist cooperative galleries in the city. Yeah, it's interesting, like similarly, we have a few outreach programs. We have like Get Noticed, which is an event that we run every 2 years, which is a way for artists that are not represented by a gallery to be able to be viewed by commercial gallery dealers. So we invite them to jury shows, and we have sort of that outreach, and also trying to do a lot of exchanges. So we've gone to Mexico, Chicago, and a few places, Ottawa, and a few places in the country as well. So sort of similar model, but like a little bit different as well. I think we tend to have shows running about every 18, our members have shows every 18 to like 21 months. And yeah, but similarly, we're running the gallery space as well that you guys are physically showing in right now. Any other Redhead panelists, do you have anything to add about kind of how you would identify the Redhead? Okay.
I think maybe, Jillian, just a comment on how we select our members, like how we bring our members into the collective. So we usually keep a number, like a roster of 17 artists for our scheduling and for our budgeting purposes. But when someone decides to leave, bringing on a new member, we do a call, like a call out to the community. And we come together as a group and we review all the applications together. And what's most important is the artist's work and the portfolio that they present to us. And then we will look at like their CV and, you know, such and further things, but we like to come to consensus in agreement on who we're bringing into the collective. So I think that's really important. That's what I found really interesting as a member, that we, you know, it's really important for everyone, the artists that come into the collective. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that experience. Or how does Plan D, how do you choose the artists that are part of your collective? I'd be curious to know.
Not to an open call, but maybe this is a good idea. from time to time, we talk to people that we think they could be a candidate, that we like their works, or one of us, is connecting directly, and then we invite them to present themselves and talk about themselves. And the work is important also what this artist does, but at the same time, it's important for us how we're asking us, are we going to, is this a good energy? Are we going to get along well with this person? So it's both ways, actually.
So basically we'll sort of move on to what I would consider the main point of our sort of conversation here today, which is there's sort of two parts to it. And the first one is to just have the Plan D artists and the Redhead artists just kind of talk about like why be part of a collective? Like, what is the opportunity of a collective? Because I think sometimes it's not the natural way that people kind of consider and view kind of exhibiting your work, right? A lot of people sort of think about like, oh, the commercial gallery format. So like, yeah, like why be part of a collective? Who wants to go first on this?
I can speak
Let's
personally,
go.
yeah, as a new person.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a huge value in working with people from various demographics and the diversity that comes to a group that I can learn either maybe a new discipline or look at new work in a much closer way than you would just experience in a gallery, or know the person, you get to have these great conversations, and that might actually inform your own practice. The reason I wanted to join the Redhead Gallery was because I'm known for doing a particular type of art where I do sort of cities from above and it's painting, it's very commercial. And I wanted to join the gallery and the collective to create a space to do something that's a little more experimental, a little more thought-provoking, a little more risky, and having the support of all of the other members and saying, yes, go for that. That's been really positive. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Right.
And there's another point to collective, which is away from logistic opportunities, because I totally agree with you. There's a saying, we're only as weak as strong as the weakest link in the chain. But for a collective, this is not true, because our change are not like this, but they are on one side, and if you meet another collective, they are all on the other side. So we have many links.
Yeah.
So the strongest goes for all.
Yeah.
Because the weaker are not even in kind of pressure, because the stronger take it.
Yeah.
Which is stated in easy words, one speaks French. That's enough for the collective. You only need one. One speaks English. And all the others get the benefit from this.
Yes.
So all the opportunities are mixed up.
Yeah, like you're a single artist, but you're also like just part of this much, like you're your own artist, but then you're also just a piece of this larger organism, this thing. Yeah.
And you can
profit from that and benefit.
Stronger.
Yeah. And then also the idea that you can, as a collective of artists, you can reach out and connect to other artists very quickly and easily, right? Because you're not, because you're sort of in control of that entity. Yeah. Who else wants to speak to that?
Another thing is that for me, is that I'm not so strong in advertising for myself, but I'm good in doing this for other people. So I like to do it. If I try to exhibit another artist, and I think it's a very good one, I can do it much better and louder than I would do it for myself. So maybe it's one thing too.
Yeah, which is the ongoing challenge with sometimes being an artist, is how the promotion of yourself versus very easy to promote somebody else instead, right? So then you benefit from other people being able to promote you. Yeah.
So I guess echoing what everybody said already. So like I've been part of a couple of collectives here in Canada, and then I was also part of collectives in Pakistan. So the one thing I feel is common is the idea of community building. Because I think that is the one aspect which you find missing in institutional galleries or private galleries, or if you want to call them commercial galleries. It's it's not, they don't promote the idea of building the artist community. And I think that's where we reverse the model completely. We do not want to exist in silos, and just like Plan D was mentioning, that for them, the dialogue that's the key, right? And I think you missed that out in commercial galleries completely.
Sometimes it's even the opposite.
Exactly,
Yeah,
they don't.
They don't want that, yes.
And then the idea of gatekeeping is missing from, the whole coming together as a collective. And I think community building is prime and key, and we need to support each other in not just share resources, but also people who share ideologies are coming together. And I think that's very, very important.
And an aspect also for me, also one of the aspects why I wanted to join Plan D was the exchange thing, because I was interested in having a dialogue with different foreign countries. But on the other side, what I also really like is the freedom you're having being in a collective, because you can decide yourself, because we have flat hierarchies. So we don't really being told what to do. We can decide who we want to show, what ideas we want to realize. And that I find really important, because we have a lot of ideas and some project we want to realize, and we can do it that way.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, Tanya or Sohaila, do you wanna chime in here?
Yeah, I think sort of following up on what's have been said, the idea of artists as their own curator is a big part of being part of a collective like Redhead for me, that I have the autonomy of deciding on what the exhibition is going to be all about and how is it going to manifest in a gallery space. And that is something that is not available any other way, at least in Canada. I'm not sure about Germany, that in other sort of institutions, there is always a curator available or somebody who facilitates that have a different input, whereas being part of Redhead has always allowed me to be my own curator and know this space really well and create very site-specific works for this space and think about the gallery on its own as part of the work, rather than just being an artist who creates a particular work that is then set into a setting of an exhibition.
Yeah, it's almost like the gallery itself almost becomes like the final artist in the collective. Like once you've been like with Redhead, you sort of know that space intimately, and you know the opportunities of it, and how work can resonate in it. Tanya, did you want to?
I mean, I agree with everything that's being said. For me, joining Redhead, because I was new to the Toronto area, it was important for me to find community. And also as an artist, I think a lot of us, work in a solitary practice, right? Like we're alone a lot of the times in our studios. So having a collective to meet, to work together, to connect is really important, especially like coming to a bigger city. It was really important to me. I also really like the framework in that it's very open. So once you're selected into the collective, there are no restrictions. It's unrestricted, right? Like you can do whatever you want in the space. No one is setting any parameters or saying you can't do anything. Nothing's being vetted. We trust. There's this trust that you are a good artist and you're going to have a fabulous show, and we're here to support the artists that show. But also that I do all my new work for Redhead, and I think that's really great too, that it's this open space, and I think that's really special.
Did I miss anybody?
I agree with everybody before saying anything. I just remembered one thing. Whenever I'm somewhere and I meet artists, and I start explaining that I am part of a collective, I have the feeling it opens doors immediately, because maybe on one hand it's like a qualification in a way. I cannot really define this, but it's you are not only the person, you are behind you, there's a collective, And it's also clear that there might be opportunities for somebody else to exhibit or to get in contact. So that's a really nice, pleasant part of it.
Yeah. I think there's sort of two things that I find are really interesting about a collective. Well, first of all, I just am strongly committed to the model of collectives and cooperative galleries. Out of OCAD, I was one of the founding members of Propeller Gallery, and then was a founding member of Loop Gallery. So, and those were two kind of cooperative galleries. One of them is still existing, one of them is sort of on hiatus right now, but just that idea that there should be diversity of ways of being able to work as an artist and to be able to show and present your work, and that is as valid as a more institutional gallery or commercial gallery. So that for me is really important, that maintaining that diversity of ways of being able to exist and exhibit as an artist. But it's also the fact that in the collective, I mean, when we're choosing members, like oftentimes we'll be like, oh, we've lost some textile artists. It'd be really cool, like, to have that diversity back, because I think what's really interesting for me is how in a collective I'm working with people that think totally differently than me, which is really different than having been in a commercial gallery where oftentimes, oh, it's a painting gallery. So it's primarily painters that are kind of in that gallery, or there's a very specific aesthetic. And so like there's kind of this way of thinking where it's all in alignment. And in a collective, like that's the beauty of it, is like when we're talking about work and when we're thinking about projects or what have you, and even just how someone's brain is thinking so differently than mine in terms of the idea of like how to use the work as space and how to kind of create artworks, which I think is really fascinating.
It's inspiring.
It's totally inspiring too. And like it's like having a sculptor have commentary on painting, right? Which I love, because I'm like, they're thinking about paint and totally differently than a painter does and so forth. And so having that as like my basis of existence as an artist is very cool. Like that's to me really exciting. And I think it pushes me to think about my work differently, for sure. Like makes me keep evolving, which is cool. Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything further?
I just want to sort of follow up to what you're saying and what Tanya was saying, that I actually hadn't think about this till Tanya said that I do most of my new work for Red Hat Gallery versus any other gallery that I exhibit. So it is very, very much the extension of my studio. And if it's not there, I feel like there's something missing.
Yeah, it's like the incubator space. Like it's like the space where you can try brand new things and really push the boundaries of your practice, which is very cool.
I also like that when you're working towards things, we were talking about how different artists do have different mediums that they work in, but also they have different backgrounds. And so you can get a really interesting read on or feedback on a perspective. So what I might think is one thing, somebody who has maybe a different cultural background will say, have you considered these things? And you're like, I didn't even think of that. And so it's really great that everyone has these different resources, but also you can be informed in your blind spots. And that's really, really valuable.
Yeah. And something else that I hear, we hear fairly regularly at Red Hat, at least, is from like the public that comes in to view the shows, is like, I can't believe how this space has been transformed. Like it looks totally different. The gallery, like I wouldn't even have recognized the gallery, because the exhibition that was previous and then the one that just comes in is like, it's a completely different experience for the viewer. Which I know a lot of our viewing public has kind of really been very positive about, is just like how they never know what to expect, but they're always like really positively surprised by what come in after a previous show and how the pendulum just sort of swings all over the place in terms of the shows. Yeah,
I think this is one of the biggest parallels between Plan D and Reddit.
yeah,
Because if you have 12 characters creating 12 exhibitions, it's totally different every 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And the public really
Yeah.
appreciates
How
it.
many shows do you do per year?
good question. I really should know that. We have month-long shows, so basically about 12. But we oftentimes in the summer months, so oftentimes, like, for instance, when you guys are showing right now, oftentimes is like a rental spot. So it's when artists that can't commit to being a full-time member, they can apply and they can be given like just a one-off exhibition. So, this means it's not always like the members showing, but we have about 12 exhibitions a year. So I'm on.
That's also pretty much.
Yeah. But you guys have like a bunch of rooms in your physical space, right? Like your gallery has, like, we just have like the one big L-shaped room. So like, have you guys do you get to pick what room you're gonna show in? Like when you have your own shows, like, or is there always like the one room that's reserved for your exhibitions?
There's one little room that's actually, we call it editions, like the edition room.
Yeah.
That's always reserved for the members. And but all the other rooms are, if there's an exhibition starting, and usually in the big front room we have a mix of both artists, and then we have two small rooms that each. Sometimes they also mix there, and sometimes it's one this and one this artist. And we have the basement also, which is our special room. Sometimes we have an additional exhibition in the basement, so a parallel exhibition.
So you have a lot more programming then as a result, because you would be having multiple shows happening at the same time, sort of like in the different
So only
spaces.
two or three times a year.
Oh, okay.
Usually it's only one show
It's
in
one
all
show,
rooms.
Okay,
We have one show in the basement, so two
Okay.
shows.
Okay, got it, yeah. And do you all collectively decide on how that works, or like, again, do just curators, are certain people just able to take control and just kind of?
We decide about the program for the next year.
Right.
All together,
Okay,
but for every show, one of us is responsible.
got it,
The others help. So,
Right. Interesting, okay, yeah. Okay, shall we move on to like the second part, which is the exchange? I think we've already touched on this a little bit. But obviously that's the reason we're here today, is because of the fact that we were able to have a successful exchange between our two collectives. But clearly it sounds like for Plan D, bringing other people in and looking for opportunities outside of your own physical space is really important. So like, does one of you want to start the discussion about like why exchanges? Why is that important for you, or just anything to do with that? Yeah.
Well, you go ahead.
Well, it's, I mean, we're situated in Düsseldorf, there's a lot of art going on, and we feel a lot of art, a lot of big community of artists. And they also have the possibility to show there a lot. So we are also, that's one of the reasons why we think it's more interesting also to connect, and also really connect, for example, the Düsseldorf artists with somebody from abroad or from another German town. So to have this kind of idea, not only focus on Düsseldorf. I think this is also because we have a feeling it's already shown there. So we want to show something new. And of course, the other one is the aspect that if somebody from abroad or from another town is coming in, we have a different input. And we have different ideas, different art scenes, different language, or all of that. So this is it's sort of refreshing. That sort of ideas, refreshing projects or ideas coming in.
And do you like how do you start your exchanges? Is it just through like kind of like how we did, through like just random mutual kind of like stumbling upon somebody or something? Or are you actively trying to like sort of spread the net and like actively just like what I would call cold calling, like just reaching out to places and just randomly saying, hey, we're Plan D. Or like, what are you all like how does that work for you guys?
For example, in my thing, I've been 1 year in the gallery and I had to look after the show, and then one artist from Sweden came in, Camilla Rosberg, and yeah, it was a good feeling to talk to her. And I normally at 6 we close it, but we sit there until 12, talking. She was a young artist, assistant Jörg Geismar is an artist, important artist in Europe. It has been, you know, it's not here there. And she told me, oh, in the moment I'm working for this artist, so I can't do my own art, but I'm doing some every day one little drawing. And so I said, that's very interesting. So, and she stood there, she would be only for 1 month, then she went back to Sweden. I say, next year we're making an exhibition together, and you show this 365 little sketches, and we named it Day After Day or Tag After Tag. And I showed something, collaborate with it. So that was interesting that it, and a big friendship started to Sweden. But there we met, I make those group shows with Swedish artists and with Icelandic artists, and with, so it grows and grows, and I met so many interesting artists, and we all met so many interesting, and we did shows in Göteborg or Varberg, and with special ideas. For example, one exhibition I made was, the name was Dust Trap. Can you understand Dust Trap?
Yeah.
We have this in Germany because some people don't understand art, and they say, oh, it's so horrible, it's a dust trap. It's only collecting dust.
Right.
So the theme was dust trap. So people, because even if art is good, it's collecting dust. So we did the show with, I asked a lot of different kind of artists I know in the world, and we did the show in Sweden, and it goes on more and more. My nice colleague Camilla, she was a really good artist and good in connecting and organization. She died last year, was young, but shit happens, really. And so I tried another, and we wanted to do another show with tactile art. I asked artists to do something which you are allowed to touch. And when you're in our exhibition, you have to touch things. So in the opening, it was very interesting. Normally, a lot of people like to touch art, but this time they were so respectful, they don't want to touch it. So I had, please touch it. Yes. So it was very interesting. So this project is going further now in Sweden, and this, at the end of the summer, we are going there for a symposium, and it's paid by Sweden.
Beautiful.
So because they know plan.d now there. Yes, we will have another show with in next year than there. So it's growing, and for me it's so important to know all these different people. Even, you know, for us in Europe, for me, Corona was depressing, and even the war is depressing. Everything is going down, but to have this, to know that there are people all over the world which same dreams,
Yeah.
is a good feeling to stay alive. I think it's so important for me. So it's one thing I had to try to explain.
Sonia.
Mhm.
James, Tazeen, or Tanya, Sohaila, does Redheader want to talk about the art, like, you know, why exchanges? What?
I think one thing that I value about collectives or co-ops doing exchanges is that it's a grassroots level. Often when we have cultural exchanges, they're international, they're government-led or they're institution-led, and they're not a very nimble organism. And so there's a lot of planning, not to say that there wasn't a lot of planning for this, but it can be just amongst the members, and it doesn't require so much more administration and like all of these other things happening. I think what would be really nice is to have like an index of international, like as we do collaborative work with like plan.d or another collective, that they are added to, and other collectives can add to some sort of online index of other cooperatives that are also interested in doing this, so that cooperatives can actually start to create other dialogues and get better at maybe hosting. I also like this idea of this is trade, right? So it's like a 1-for-1. As opposed to like when you go to a residency, you might be paid or you might have to pay a lot of money to go to a residency. This is sort of like we're helping each other. We're going to give you a space. It's like building, and I've had the opportunity also to have 2 guests in my home from Germany. And so in those moments, not just in showing the exhibition, but in meeting human beings. And you know, I have my studio, and there were some parts of Sonia's piece that couldn't be done there. They had to be done here. And so she was in my studio working away. And so it's like you get to see other artists at work and the dialogue that comes out of that. Just different cultures. I think it's a huge benefit.
But yes, it was so nice in Jen Ricky, like mom and dad. It was so I'm feeling so well even without and having the studio, and I think my work is a little bit of collaborative work. I don't know how to fix sticks.
Right.
And he has a very good idea for this. So he helped me to make better art.
Yeah, so the exchange basically just kind of like
Yeah.
grew your collective,
Yeah.
basically, like you just absorbed, like, you just inherited 17 more collective members from Redhead into your like brain for like
Yeah.
the creation of your piece, right?
Yeah.
So I'll add on
Yeah,
to
go for it.
what's already we said. I echo that completely, and I think international collaborations. I mean, also keeping in mind the time we live in now, we cannot live in isolation anymore. It's not possible that something happening in one part of the world would not affect you now. That has changed, I think, drastically. So I feel it's, in an ideal world, the artist should be leading and making decisions, because I think our politicians and policymakers have failed us tremendously. And we need to build that understanding, that empathy of cultures and people around the world now. And I think this allows us, right, to have a larger voice to make those changes as artists. And I think it's.
And as James said, it's like nimble, it's a
Yeah.
nimble way of doing it, like
Yeah.
it doesn't bring, there's not
There is
layers
not
and
a lot
layers
of
of
layers of
bureaucracy.
bureaucracy involved.
Yeah,
And we do have an impact, and collective is stronger. And I guess it's important now to make those connections internationally or locally, and let our voices be heard, and it's important.
And I think it's a beautiful vision to have that we are a worldwide, we could be a worldwide network of artists. And sometimes I think artists are the better person people because they're open and they are not so judgmental about other cultures and everything. So I think it's good that it does. It's a very important contribution to society in general.
Yes, what you're saying is right. You're saying also that it's also, I think, being artists, what you also, some of you said, Tanya, usually we are pretty isolated in doing our artwork, and that it brings us together as a group. And then if different collectives connect, then we're even stronger and have more power in that sense. As also the art world sometimes tries to isolate artists, and you have always this power struggle and these hierarchies and all of that. And maybe that brings it down again and to a sort of basic sense of doing art, and doing art also and connecting art. And I find that very important.
I like the idea that these are democratized spaces, and very much like what Christian was saying, that it's not a linear link system. And it's very interesting and ironic that the name of the exhibition is called Node, because our collectives act as nodes, and your node connects to another node, and maybe through you we connect to also them, and then that makes that bond stronger. And then we can also say, well, there's this other collective maybe that's in Chicago or someplace, and you can continue that dialogue and those conversations.
yeah, that I have to give credit to Elaine Whitaker, our Redhead member, for coming up with suggesting that theme and idea. Because it gave a lot of latitude to the work that would be created, but it was also so perfect in describing the merging two of the collectives, right? Tanya or Sahela, Tanya, do you wanna chime in maybe first on the opportunity of exchange for you?
Yeah, well, I think what I really like about our two collectives working together was that there was sort of like this can-do attitude, like nothing's gonna stop us. We don't need any approvals. There's no restrictions. You know, we're just gonna make it happen. We're not waiting for a curator to direct us to do something. So I think that's what I've really enjoyed about the whole situation. And also like from the Redhead side, just us trying to figure out how to get our work to Germany, like the parameters that we're working with. I think it's been really interesting, and I don't think we would get this experience like through an institution, right?
Yeah, and I want to say that for me, this kind of an exchange is basically what's the sort of the life we live in. We live in this kind of connected world these days. No community now lives in a bubble anymore. So the fact that we're doing this exchange should actually be a big part of us as artists, whereas it's not. So I'm actually, I want to say, I'm a bit surprised that we are still lagging with what is happening in the world and the exchanges that are happening in every other sort of industry and every other sort of place. So I hope that we could do more of these things, and it could be recognized as part of a normal life of an artist, that the artists are going to be doing exchanges with other artists, no matter what the distance is. So that's what I'm hoping comes out of this, and that's what this collaborative has allowed us to do, to be able to connect to people who are not in like 21st century, are not too far away. We're not living in 200 years ago. So these things should be actually happening much more fluently and much more sort of frequently for everybody to sort of see what artists are doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, there's something to be said to, what excites me about this is we've sort of been on screens for so long now, and sort of having this like remote experience with everything but to actually physically have like the actual artwork coming into our gallery and us physically sending our artwork as opposed to it just being a screen exchange, you know, I think is like really important for me, like to physically have that tactility in front of me. And that again, on a totally like personal level, like in terms of an exchange, there's restrictions and parameters on how you can ship work, or like physically, like, you know, when you start to go back into like, okay, I want to move the work physically to a different location, not just like send the digital file, right? Like I'm now going to have to put restrictions on like the scale or the material I'm using, because I need to get it there and it not to cost a fortune and to not break. And so I think like creatively, there is an interesting like obstruction that gets put in your path that you have to respond to, which has sort of been like, for me, I struggled quite a bit figuring out like, okay, how am I going to create an artwork that'll fit in this box we decided we were going to send to you guys? And I'm like, that I don't work that small. Like, how am I going to do this? Right. So it took me a really long time to wrap my head around like, how can I create a work that is meaningful for me and still fits the parameters of the exchange, which I love, because again, that is like part of it as an artist, is like getting those external not restrictions, those external requirements imposed on you, which is to me also kind of part of the exchange on a more logistical level and a more like, you know, in my studio level. Yeah.
We also have instructions.
Yes.
For this particular exchange. And I think you're talking about those challenges when you have a practice that you maybe make in a certain way, and then someone says like, okay, you have to do it in a certain way, or you have to do a behavior, or you have an activity, or something has to be included in your work. All of a sudden, it takes what you usually do sort of turns it sideways. And personally, through that experience, I made something that I would not usually
Yeah.
ever make.
That's what I mean, right? Like, that's just it, right? It's just suddenly. I mean, it's essentially the same as a curator coming and saying, this is the idea, make the work, but we're creating that ourselves, which is very cool. I'm just, again, I'm the timekeeper. So, unless anybody has something really sort of meaningful, important they want to say, I'd like to kind of pass it over to David McClimick, who's also a Redhead member and artist, who's been monitoring the chat, as to whether or not, is there anything coming on the chat in
Well,
terms of questions or comments?
There isn't,
Okay.
everyone's been quite polite, but I have a question that I'd like to throw out to both co-ops. And the conversation right now is for inwardly looking. I'd like you to, both Redhead and Plan D, look outwardly. And not how you see yourselves. We've talked about that. How do you think the art community where you are, so in Düsseldorf from Toronto, see you? So for example, are you a threat? Are you a champion? Will anybody miss you if you disappear? Will you shed a tear, or are you a question? Like, how do you think the rest of the larger arts community views what you do?
Well, I mean, Richard Monget has been doing that ongoing collective series of documentaries. So I think there's definitely, I mean, ironically, Richard was a member of Luke, so Richard's very embedded and deeply invested in the collective framework. So yeah, it's an interesting question. Let's throw it out there.
I think it depends. It's just as well. It could be just as well. I don't think we are seen as heroes. Maybe I haven't heard this term. Maybe they say it, I don't think. But a threat. I don't think we are threats in a way. Like all commercial galleries, I think they want to, of course, keep us out. I've heard people over the years like saying, well, you're doing this very well, you're doing this very professionally, and I admire your perseverance to stay for so long. But like everything, I'm sure there are also people who say, oh, this would not be anything for me, and plan D.
Yeah. I think the question oftentimes might be like the legitimacy of the art. Do you find that comes up at all? Because of the fact that as a cooperative gallery, you're sort of like an artist-run gallery, like you're basically artist running the gallery, providing exhibition space for yourself. Do you see that? Like, I don't know, in Germany, is that like questionable at all? Like, do people respect the validity of your work as an artist when you haven't been chosen by a dealer to be in a gallery, or you haven't been asked by a curator to be like, it's like, is that something like in Germany that's like, as a collective members, do you ever experience that sort of, not really discrimination, but that sort of
Yes,
view?
yes, yes, at least I have, or probably other members have too, that we have also experienced that. Yeah, these ideas that we are not really questioning the validity, but yeah, if it's useful or good to show there. But on the other side, I've found that we've exhibited a lot of really also very successful artists that wanted to show with us. So I think it's yeah, that's equivalent. So somehow. I also feel always we should be appreciated. Our work should be appreciated more. So that's what I feel. It's also, I mean, it's great, but it's also a lot of work what we're doing. I'm sure you think the same way, and I'm sure we would be missed very much.
We are appreciated by the artists. I think a lot. I get a lot of positive responses, but not by the officials, by the money.
It seems like it's like,
It's
they're slightly
complicated.
confused. They're a little confused. I feel like they don't quite know what collectives and cooperative galleries are.
Yeah, but
It's very difficult for us
let
to
me
get
bring this to
funding.
the point with the artists.
Yeah.
Some years ago, I don't know how many, we were really out of money.
Yeah.
So we said, what can we do? No government money, not enough money from the city. And we made an open call to all artists we know, please exhibit with us in the summer and please pay for it.
Yeah.
We usually don't do this and we
Yeah.
hate to do this. And everybody knows that we don't take money from artists, but
Yeah.
do something for them. And we had a lot of people saying, yes, you have to survive. Yeah, we got a lot of support in this exhibition. There were, I don't know, do you remember how many?
Can't say, but.
It was about 100.
Yeah, 20 maybe.
It was
120 or 130 artists just
That's maybe everything.
were happy to help us.
I guess for the redhead, I can, because it's been there for so long, I think it has kind of established that respect for it over the years. Like I can speak to, because a year ago I was the outside. So yeah, I mean, it's within the arts community, it's somewhat considered a privilege to be part of this collective. And I guess also our location helps us tremendously, being in that building, which is already housing so many, artist-led initiatives, artist-run centers, and so I think that support. So there is that community support that we kind of enjoy, or maybe to to David's question, maybe we've become complacent to it as well to some extent. That support that we have, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, I think that respect has been established over the years, that we would see quality artwork and, the artists behind those exhibitions. And I think.
You feel like you're biting your tongue, James. Did you want to say something? I also just want to open it up to
Really
the
quickly,
other Plan D and
Something
Redhead
that hasn't
members.
been
Sure.
said about collectives.
Yeah.
And I think we're touching on this here, is that with these cultural exchanges, we can also open up dialogues of the challenges that collectives have, whether it be to David's question about public perception, but also looking at various funding models. Right, so if there's a collective that is doing it excellently in one country because they have partial government funding and partial this, or they get it from donors or whatever. If somebody's doing it really well, why not learn from that and make it benefit? You're talking, it makes all of the links a bit stronger.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider when we have these exchanges, is to say, like, how do you run it? How do you run it? How do you make it happen? We have this problem. Do you also have this problem?
Yeah.
Oh, let's maybe brainstorm, and maybe between these two groups, feel like we figure this out, and the next node or the next meeting, we say, you know what, we had this problem. We can pass along that knowledge.
Sure.
So.
As I said, I know there's I can see a lot of Redhead members and Plan D members that are present online. So I feel like we should just be quiet for a bit and see if anybody out there has anything they want to say at all about anything we've brought up, or the experience of the exchange, or anything at all. You don't have no pressure, but
Raise your hand.
if you want to, just raise your hand maybe, and we'll know to.
Or put the question in the chat.
Or put the question in the chat, yeah, so if there's anything else. Does anybody physically here have any final questions? Lois. Lois is a Redhead member as well.
I'm interested in how Plan D coordinates their exhibitions. Like you were saying, you were saying that you met up with this young woman and it sort of developed. And is that what happens with all of you, or is there some concerted effort on all of your parts where you sit down and we say, okay, we're going to have a show, and this either you invite people? How do you go about doing that?
Maybe Peter can say something.
Peter, hi.
Maybe, but I didn't understand the question so good. The people from behind are sometimes a little bit noisy in my speaker.
Maybe somebody could say it in German. That would be better.
Peter, wie schaffen wir es, also wie machen wir Kontakt zu anderen Collectives, also anderen Kooperativen, machen wir, ist das immer bei persönlichen Kontakt, fragt sie, ergibt sich das so oder gehen wir gezielt vor und suchen jemanden, das war die Frage.
So there are a lot of difficult ways. Mostly it's personal, that we meet some people, sometimes like in Toronto, that Andrea has been there and asked for artists group, and in other times people come to our gallery and say we have an interest. Or years ago with our Japanese member, he knows the other Japanese artist in Kyoto, and so we made an exchange with his artists. And after a while, we got a contact to Osaka, and then new friends. I must say, some of these people getting after a while like friends. You see first children, second children, third children. Every time you go there, there is one more. And mostly it's by personal contacts, but sometimes also last year we had made a contact in Germany, and this was only by internet.
What I can sort of understand is that it's a lot more organic, the way Plan D is working towards exhibitions, and it's which is great, and there is a lot more openness in terms of how they come together and contacts are made, and rather than like a set specific process.
No, anything is possible. We are open for every means of getting in contact or meeting an artist. Sometimes they walk in as persons or as collectives and ask, can we do something together? Sometimes we ask somebody. Sometimes we get an email from a gallery in Munich who says, maybe we connect. Every means is good for us.
So
we take every opportunity we can get.
I'm curious then too, as to all of you organize this coming together, or are there usually one or two people, like in this case, Andrea was like the lead, Julian was leading on ours, but in ours, there were people that took on different responsibilities. And I'm just wondering how you organize that.
Yeah, we always have a group, maybe it also develops like organically. Maybe I have a connection to this country or to the person. So usually it takes 3 people or so if it's a long-term story. Maybe one starts, and then also we need to organize things so we work together, as opposed to if we have our regular showing exhibition business. I say then mostly only one person is creating. But if we have exchanges, then it needs more people, definitely.
Usually we have 2 or 3 doing that. Yeah. All right, we are just over 1 hour, and we did have sort of it scheduled to be a 1 hour conversation, which I think is a good amount of time. Is there anybody that has any final parting thoughts that just need to be expressed before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I have a question, and I would like to hear which members of Red Hat comes to Düsseldorf.
Go ahead.
Oh, who's coming? He's asking who's
coming to Düsseldorf.
Yeah, who goes to Düsseldorf?
Good question. Some of us are sorting out our teaching schedules as to whether or not we're going to be able to be available. But James is definitely coming. Sarah Kernahan is, I'm 90% sure. I don't know if Sarah's on the Zoom or not. Okay, but I'm pretty sure Sarah's going. Lois, hoping. Possibly Pearl.
Yeah, teaching schedule.
Possibly me, as I said, we're stuck with teaching schedules. And yeah, so it'll probably be like a small group, sort of similar to the amount of Plan D artists that came to Toronto.
But what I wanted to say, you've been such great hosts, and thank you, Lois. It was really wonderful. She was my host. So it's really a pleasure, and we would like to give it back to you. Yeah.
No, it's been really fantastic. It's been a fantastic experience so far. Do you have a question? Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go for it.
I'm not in either group, but I would like to ask the Plan B people. Is there anything that surprised or shocked you so far with the artists and the way Redhead is doing?
I feel like they're hard to shock.
No, No.
Anything that was totally unexpected.
no,
Like totally different, like you're like, oh, that was like so different than the way we would sort of think or do something, or
No, but I think we can learn a lot from you, because you're, in a way, you're better organized. Like you have this person that is there,
yeah,
a paid job, I understand, yeah?
yes,
And she's doing all the social media.
yes,
And then you have this program of getting together some curators, and they get an open call and
Yeah.
reply in this platform.
yeah,
And also you were telling me another like fundraising 24-hour thing. So really, that was
There's fundraising initiatives.
yeah.
yes. I really appreciate it. See, all do, and I think.
Yeah, there's something to be beneficial on both ways though, because I think there's something intriguing about the flexibility of your schedule and the way that things are a little less planned. It seems like, I don't mean that in like disorganized, but what I mean is like, you're much more willing to kind of like expand, contract, and kind of like absorb things on a shorter term, in a shorter term way. Whereas we have this sort of slightly more regimented sort of exhibition schedule set up. So it's sort of a little bit of like both ways, or have their pros and their cons, I think, to it, right?
Yeah. Something to learn from.
Yeah.
Like Plan A and Plan D.
Yeah.
We should start calling it
Plan A.
planning.
By the way, that was a story. You wanted to give the story where
Yes, it's not important.
about the Peter. You can please listen and correct me if I'm wrong. So as I know, or maybe you want to tell it, Peter. Maybe you.
Oh,
can
no,
tell
I only curious because there are more than one story about this Plan B name.
The whole mythology.
So,
Please tell me.
a legend I know that was you said that some people wanted to form a collective to like a get together, and they all met at this where was this day? The gallery? No, they had no,
it wasn't.
Somebody said in the kitchen table. Then they said, well, so there's Plan E. What could we do? And I don't know what Plan E was. A was, but they discussed the Plan A, and then as an alternative, they discussed the Plan B, Plan C, and Plan D. So in the end, they decided on Plan D. So that is how.
Nice.
Is it like this, Peter?
Yeah, it was a new story for me, but I had a similar one.
I've been told this a number of times.
I like that story.
Yeah.
But in the end, Plan D is this project what will be realized, and all the other plans are not realized.
Right.
A, B, C. No?
Like it.
And how about your name?
Oh, you know what? I was afraid you were gonna ask that.
So Julian, I did some digging about her name. I talked to some people that were
Sure.
around at the beginning,
Mhm.
and as near as I can figure out, it rests with Carl Skelton. And they were having an early member of Redhead, and they had a whole list of names.
Yeah.
And they got really frustrated. What's wrong with Redhead? Fine.
So, but as to where Redhead actually, like, like where it even came out of. It was a bunch of printmakers. Basically, the majority of the artists that originated Redhead were printmakers. But you know what? The legend has sort of been lost.
Yeah.
In terms of exactly where Redhead came from, unfortunately.
Like I said.
Or maybe
that-
fortunately, I don't know.
That, the name was just an expedient, they said, okay, let's just go with Redhead.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they,
Yeah.
that's what they did, and then I gather the printmakers were multifaceted. Didn't just do printmaking,
Yes.
so it started to branch out.
Yeah,
So it has nothing to do with hair color
Or the fox.
or the fox.
see,
This is interesting.
I know.
This is a
we need to create the
we
mythology.
need
Have to create a
whole
Yeah.
mystery.
Yeah.
Of it.
We can have a competition.
All right, I think that,
Jillian, before we,
Yes.
I do have a couple of things in the chat that I'd
sure,
like to read out. A Plan D artist helped me with this, I'm gonna ruin the name, Aljosa. Alosha. Thank you so much for having my artwork with you guys together in the exhibition in Toronto. It's so nice to listen to this hybrid dialogue between the two collectives. I'm on my way out because my phone is dying soon and looking forward to the next meeting. So thank you. And then one from Laura, a new member from Redhead, who's up there on the screen. A beautiful and refreshing exhibition. What a great opportunity. As a new member, I'm super excited by this edition.
fantastic. All right. Okay, so I think we'll wrap things up. Again, thank you to the Goethe Institute for making it possible. And it has been just a true pleasure. I sort of speak on behalf of Redhead. It's been a true pleasure working with you guys from Plan D and just actually being able to meet some of you. So yeah, really appreciate it. Okay, thank you everybody for coming via Zoom and in person. And that is the end of our collective conversation.
Now he comes.